information that will be another tool in our tool belt to be able to help love our kids well. So once again, we appreciate you coming out tonight.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me authentically. Not just words, but for real. So I got to understand some of your backgrounds a little bit. It sounds like you have all had some experience with foster care one way or another. In fact, the vast majority. So that's going to be good because I think I will focus a little bit more on some of the practical stuff. I think you live this. There's no need for me to explain something you really intimately understand. I hope to just kind of go through some of the deeper psych stuff that you might be dealing with, and again, what to do about it, and to also kind of let the cat out of the bag that there's really nothing you can do to harm anybody. Just being there, you're doing quite a bit. And we're going to talk about some of the psychological reasons for that. But lo and behold, even though it may not feel like you're doing much, you're doing a tremendous amount. Very similar to kind of like having stop signs and stop lights when you drive. They're there, they don't seem like they're that important, but take them away and watch what happens. These safety features that are kind of there do a lot more than you realize. And that's you. That's basically you. So let me tell you a little bit about my background. I am a licensed psychologist. Let's see, where do I start? I was a school psychologist in Sanger. I moved to do clinical work with the prisons, and I have done all kinds of work. I work with schools now, and I have a nonprofit that we train about 20 to 30 graduate students every year doing this kind of work because I was out in Merced County Office of Ed there, and there is nothing out there. There's just no psychologists whatsoever. So we realized that this giant need for clinicians needed to somehow get patched up, and so I created a training program and now a nonprofit. We've been doing it 6 years. So we take really, wide-eyed, bushy-tailed grad students who are very good, and we get them out there. And so I try to do a lot of that type of work now, really getting the next generation going. So got quite a wide background. I would say that the prison stuff was the most telling, something that pushed me to kind of do this work, because there, and I still do work for them, you are seeing some of the effects that trauma can have on a 20, 30-year course that is painful. When you watch grown men come in there, tatted up to their necks, sit down with you and just cry, it gives you a sense of how powerful that trauma experience really is. And always, I'll hear a very similar story. Some kind of trauma neglect early, school didn't go so well, got connected into some drugs, and then pretty much from there on, it's a real sad story that they couldn't get out of. But one of the things that really hit me there at the prison, not only just hey, these are grown men who look at the effect, but also that I imagined what they were like when they were going through it. And so I a few of them, I really did. I'll tell you this, the one that really hit me was a 63-year-old man, and he was telling me a story that his dad put him in the oven just before he went to school as a punishment. This was a punishment, threw him in the oven. I don't know how hot it was or whatever. Even if it wasn't hot, that's pretty scary for a kid. But that kid then went to school that day. He was the kid that was in the chair making everybody mad, pissing everybody off. Teachers didn't want to have anything to do with him. Gets kicked out, goes to the office, gets suspended. And you could see that the kid was just asking for help in the worst possible way you can. Okay, but that is kind of what these men experience as young kids. And so it really got me to look at the schools and some of this early intervention stuff, because that was a cry for help, that if a school could answer, the trajectory of this person's life could be different. And it's that same hard to deal with behavior that is asking for help in disguise that I know you face. And I know you're like, I'm helping, I don't understand. How come they're not receiving this? It's the same kind of dynamic. So we're going to talk about that in great detail. So long story short, the prison stuff really got me to do this, because the best thing I could do for guys like that was to work with them when they were little and make sure they don't get to where a place like the prison, which is really a tough place. Okay, so tonight, this is kind of what we're going to talk about. We're going to look at really what trauma is, some of the biological features of it, which is good news, I'll tell you about that. And then we'll talk about ACEs a little bit, the adverse childhood rating or experiences. Well, I'm sure you're familiar with it, but we'll kind of get you a little baseline. And we'll talk about, trauma is something that can be boomeranged. It can really be used to build strength with. It can also bury you. It's not like, hey, great trauma, but it can work for you. And so we're going to talk a little bit about that, how the modern kind of psych approach is to eliminate discomfort and to eliminate your sense of stress. That might not be the best idea. It's more or less how to integrate. Integrating that is the far better way. So we're going to talk about that a little bit. All right, so what is trauma? It definitely is more than just an event. Of course, it's a traumatic event, usually with mortal danger implied of some sort. You feel like you're going to die. You feel like you're going to be overwhelmed. But it is also the after effects of that. So it's not just the event. And people can go through, as a psychologist, I see this all the time. You could take two people going through the same event, and one's horribly traumatic, and the other one's, hey, what's next? No problem. So you have these features that work together. But the effects after the traumatic event is really what I think people are referring to. It's the trauma. It's those effects that are what we collectively see as trauma. So what it technically really is, it's the mental state that triggers your fight or flight system, but it's the idea that due to this event, you chronically don't feel safe. Now, on the foster side, a kid's sense of safety is linked to their parent, the two symbols of great need giving and safety providing. And by definition, that's disrupted. As a kid, that's about the highest level of not feeling safe you're going to get. So just the fact, even if it went smoothly and maybe parents were lost in a car accident, not through neglect or getting taken from the system, just the absence of those safety features really is what the issue is for the kid. Now, the reason I'm bringing that up is, and we'll talk about it a little bit in later slides, but they're chronically going to be needing adult attention to feel safe, okay? And the real trick of making them feel that way is using many, many adults together, if you can, but to deliver this constant sense of adult attention. A lot of these behaviors are just them asking, hey, are you going to be there? Hey, are you going to be there? Hey, are you going to be there? Over and over and over and over and over. So the kiddos are getting constantly triggered. That fight or flight system is always going. And then one other thing to that, the kids' minds are extremely powerful, okay? How many people here think back if you can, think back to when you were a kid and seeing your parents? They seem like these superheroes or something. For me, my dad would bust out the belt, and that was a different kind of experience. Oh man, that's like Superman with a belt, no way. But then you get older and you watch him and you're like, oh, that was it? I was afraid of that? What? My dad's a normal guy. What the heck? So the kid's mind, it has to do with the way the mind kind of moved, okay, way back in the day. But it's powerful. It adds stuff to experiences. So a smaller traumatic experience can feel way, way bigger, okay, and magical. So raise your hand if you watch Saturday morning cartoons at some point in your life, right? Yeah, of course, me too, right? Best thing ever. Yes, no school, Bugs Bunny, whatever it's going to be. What the heck is that? I mean, you watch them now, there's a lot of madness going on. The cartoon is closer to the way the kid sees the world. It's a magical kind of world where things get bent, your feelings kind of are exaggerated. That's more like the way they see things. So the whole point of that is their brains can make a traumatic experience really elevated, really, really much higher. The nice part about that is as they become adults, that starts to fade, and you can kind of work on the event itself. But they are generally going to be, the effect is going to be higher for kids generally, and that's why. It has to do with the brain, more or less. So we'll talk a little bit about that. Oh, you're gonna be doing this. But generally the trend will be more intense. That's the pattern. It's more intense feeling, and that means that the behaviors will be more odd. Okay? When I deal with people with schizophrenia, the things they do don't make any sense. To them they do. It's perfect. Have you seen The Beautiful Mind? It's an older movie now, but it makes sense to them somehow. But the outside world trying to read that, like, why are you putting a stuffed animal underneath the doghouse? What's that about? And they're like, well, if I don't, it's going to stop raining. So it can make sense, but they can be odd behaviors. So sometimes the kids are the same way. They're going to do things that seem really out of place, but I promise you there's some rationale behind it. All right. So again, these are natural things. The fight or flights in trauma, the fight or flight system gets triggered. So what's happening is you have a natural reaction, something that's actually good, just being overstimulated. The triggers are happening more often. And you can see the list of what they are. And that's because it's nested in a system. I don't want to nerd out too bad, but it's the sympathetic nervous system, and it really puts you in the mode to fight or flight. And it was designed for lions to come and chase you. And the lion ain't chasing you for a couple hours, okay? It's going to get you in 10 minutes or you're going to get away. So what's nice about the fight or flight system and the trauma is that it's short in bursts. The fight or flight system cannot be on physically for more than 20 to 60 minutes, no matter what. So when a kiddo or anybody is in this panic state, you have to keep hitting home with them and for you to realize that the storm will pass because biologically it cannot stay on. So that's kind of nice. It's a natural system and it will go down on its own because it can't be sustained. All right, and we don't have enough time to talk about how to manipulate that and the thoughts that go with it, but it is short in nature. So just know that if you're going through it with your kid, it will pass. I promise you it will pass. So there's hope. And it's passing because it's in a biological system. And it's similar to the sleep deprivation. If you, they do these, there's a couple guys that decided to go on very long rides in air balloons. And the air got rough, let's put it that way. And they were up for days and days at a time. And there became this spot where they just dropped in the basket. They just couldn't, the body turned off. And so this system's a little bit like that. At a certain point, it'll check out of Dodge. All right, and so, again, what's natural is the system. What's unnatural is that it's being triggered all the time. It's just more frequent triggering. That last point, well, where it can get kind of dangerous is in the generalization part. Typically, like if you're in a car accident, let's say, and a red car hits you on a particular street, if you don't go deal with that, kind of facing it, the fact that you were in an accident was scary, what happens is that other cars that are red, you'll start to get nervous about. Then things that are red, the red fire truck, you'll get nervous about that. Then you won't wear red shirts, and it can really grow out of control. So that's where the danger of some of the trauma is. They can generalize to other things. The man's re-experiencing piece, excuse me. Wow, this is an underestimated feature of humans. You know, the human brain can re-experience the trauma almost the same as it's happening again. Physically, actually, the way the neurons are bunched together, or at least the patterns that will help form memories, it's imagining it is almost experiencing it again for humans. That's an unusual feature that we have versus other animals that are out there. They don't have this feature. Now, it can be great because you can rehearse success. And if you go up to some of these CEO whisperer kind of, there's psychs that do this. I know at least one other guy. It's all about this imagining of the success over and over. And they're using that power of your mind to imagine for something good, and it works there. But for trauma, it works against us because you really are re-experiencing it. And don't underestimate that. It is really strong. So it's really important that you ground people. We'll talk about the techniques a little bit later, but grounding them in reality and realizing, hey, you're not in danger, even though you see it. Touching things that are here right now will help break that. But the mind is rehearsing it over and over and over and re-experiencing it over and over and over. So in terms of trauma, the effects of it is... If you look at kids on the spectrum, the ADHD, or well, autism spectrum, and ADHD, which is technically a part of the same thing, the brain looks different. It actually is a little bit different. So like in schizophrenia, for example, you'll see the ventricles in the middle of the brain where there's these cavities that hold fluid. They're bigger. For ADHD, you'll see the frontal cortex. It's disorganized a little. Sometimes blood doesn't get there the right way, and it's tangled up. So you'll see that there's neuroprofiles. The brain actually changes for people on the spectrum. Trauma can do this as well. If you're constantly in the fight or flight state, because it's a physiological state in your body, it slows your thinking, but it can kind of keep you in that mode. So trauma effects are pretty heavy. I mean, it could literally change who you are. But again, treatable, definitely treatable. So let's talk a little bit about this. This is something psychology has a real hard time with. I'm doing it. I'm going to nerd with you a little bit, just a little bit. The animal brain, if you go farther down into the brain, okay, the systems get simpler and more powerful and you're less aware. Like right now, like the back of your brain right here, this brainstem is keeping your heart going, your lungs going like that. And so if I say think about your heartbeat, which inevitably will right now, can't help it. It's coming to kind of awareness, but before that it was just way in the background. Okay, so there's these levels of kind of awareness that are in there. Suffering is it fits weird, okay? If you go to the animal part of the brain, the more just middle-ish section, its job is to make you feel comfortable as much as possible. The more comfort you feel, the happier you are, the better you put all that together. So like in the animal sense, good means not suffering. It's a little math equation that's in there, and you got all these systems that help do that. They program Las Vegas slot machines based on this system, okay? But it's really for the animal type, not feeling bad means you're successful, okay? Well, if you look at more the spiritual kind of spectrum, I'm a Christian guy. I've walked for a long time. I've thought about these things often. And if you go far away from the animal to that spiritual side, the suffering's embraced. In fact, there are some levels of this, which I definitely have never gotten to, but have observed, or read about them, where people embrace the suffering. They enjoy the suffering. It's completely opposite of the animal world. The animal world would say, what are you doing? Get out of there. And so our brain is trapped in that. It's kind of got this battle between the animal side of it that just wants to feel comfortable, and then this more beautiful spiritual side that's like, no, you got to integrate the suffering. In fact, suffering is something good. And so it's on a spectrum like that, More animal, it's more avoiding. Then the middle sides kind of tolerate it. And like I said, major spiritual figures of the history books, I mean, obviously Paul being one, where they really learn to enjoy it. So the psych side is more the animal side. Its job is like, hey, let's make you feel better. Here's some pills. Here's some ways to think, to pretend like you're not suffering. That's what the kind of secular side does. And if you talk to like the guys in the prison, that doesn't go very far. They're uncomfortable. There's no like way to trick your mind into feeling comfortable there. So psychology doesn't know what to do with suffering very well and how trauma can fit into that. Modern psych will say, let's stop the effects of you feeling bad about the trauma. Yeah, we'll talk about the trauma, but ultimately, you're not really going to learn from the trauma. You just want to stop the bad feelings about it. Okay? So all of your... I work for these. I do work in group homes, STRTPs as well. I know the county side. I know what resources they'll give you, and there's mostly along that area, okay? Or, hey, let's get some therapy, but all we do is talk to them. We don't have any magic sauce or anything. We just talk. So I would really heavily invite you, when working with this type of population, is to embrace that suffering a little bit. Don't feel like, you could work with them on it in a spiritual way. I think it's okay. To be perfectly honest with you, it's the only way to integrate it. Otherwise it'll be like a gardener. You're just going to be nonstop weeds. All you're doing is keeping the weeds low. And then when they leave you, maybe they learn to do it, maybe they don't. But if you can integrate that, hey, this stuff has purpose to it. I don't know what that purpose is. I can't tell you why you were brought into this situation, but it's here with you. I'm here with you, and let's try to integrate it. I think if you take that approach, that'll soak in. Because, look, no matter what you're doing, the likelihood of them giving acknowledgement to you in the way that you think to help them acknowledge, hey, what you're doing is working for me, you're not going to get that. And it's not till later that you'll get this letter, this Christmas card in the mail, and say, wow, man, it was profound what you did for me. So I think if you can kind of think about your own suffering in a way of, I'm not going to get credit right now, that's a healthy thing for you as well. So, definitely look at it as an integration process, and that you can kind of pitch to them a little bit, which is true, that this suffering is necessary for growth. I mean, look at the snake. I don't know if you've ever seen a snake do this, but they're like getting on rocks. It is not fun. It's not a good day. They're getting all bloodied up. But if they don't shed that skin, it'll suffocate them. And so I think, sharing that, hey, look, these bad things that have happened, we're not only going to find a purpose, but they are going to make you stronger. The other nice thing for a kiddo, especially adolescent type, is, look, everybody's going to suffer. All right? So, like, for example, look at the losing of the parent side, okay? It's hard to make that sound good. But if you think about it, we all are going to lose our parents one way, not just through death, but like you get out of the house at some point. You're going to lose your parents too. It's just that it happens to these individuals earlier. So it's kind of nice to normalize that a little bit, that, hey, you too also lost your parents. Just to say, now they're getting a head start on it. Maybe not something necessarily good, but it's not abnormal. The one thing I think that's very hard for any human being that feels different than the group, because there's powerful things around that, but definitely within the foster side, is that they feel abnormal. Something is different with me. Now, that may not sound like a lot, but in a social creature where your survival is being a part of the group and you don't feel part of that group very well, that's a damaging part as well. You feeling different can be one of the hardest things to cope with. Let me give you a little quick example on this. You would think somebody who's been physically abused as a kid, chronically, or sexually, either way, would be the last person to do this to somebody, right? I mean, it would just make sense. They experienced this horrible thing, and they would never want to do this to somebody else, okay? Yet, the likelihood that they will is much higher than somebody else who's never experienced it. How do you explain that? You see, the feeling to be normal is so strong that the perpetuating of that behavior out in the rest of the group, so you feel more normal, is stronger than your experience of it and not wanting to do it to somebody else. All right? So that is what I think a lot of the foster kids are they do not want to feel different, because in the mind of our minds, it's dangerous. If you were out of the group way back in the caveman days, you're dead that night. You are not going to make it the night. The only thing that kept you alive was that group. So not being in it, you can see it creates a kind of fear, a deep old fear. So that's what I think you're kind of up against a little bit. So if you can normalize things like, hey, we all lose our parents, it just happened early, very, very powerful, very, very powerful effects, okay? Deep, deep things. All right. So what the heck? Why do we have this fight or flight system, and why was it, what's the story with it? So way back in the day, those caveman days, the world that those people were in was so dangerous, and they were so outmatched that they were scared all the time. So much so that that level of fear would leave you not being able to function. So you can't have a species who is so scared it can't hunt, survive without something to deal with that anxiety. So just so you know, that fight or flight system really developed for that reason. It's there because we had to deal with the anxiety in a way to where we could actually think. Otherwise, we would die. So why trauma is so, it seems like it's everywhere now, right? Everywhere you turn, someone's got some traumatic event going on. Why is it so high? And they'll say COVID, fine, but it's been like this for a while, before COVID even. Well, we've had systems to be able to, anybody here get chased by a lion today? Anybody? Yeah, me neither. My son works at the zoo, maybe him, but these kinds of fears, these kinds of threats aren't there anymore, all right? But because we have all this machinery, we'll invent things for it to kind of fight against, okay? So people get traumatized because they didn't get the right, creamer in their Starbucks that morning. It's to get extra mad for things that don't really matter, and it's because the system's ready to pounce at any time. So I think that's why you're seeing such a high rate of this. Another good thing about that foster side is that they've been through something early. So like they will be able to, they're not going to get mad about the coffee creamer probably as adults as much. They're inoculated a little bit. That's the good part of this. And so you can kind of work with them in that way as well. Like, wow, you have the ability to develop a lot more strength if you can. You have the traits of much stronger adults. I've worked with some adults that I'm like, wow, how did they make it? How did they make it here to my office? So the kids you're working with have this tremendous possibility of being inoculated against all these stressors that the modern folks have trouble with. So it's pretty prevalent. It's been measured more, but it's out there. 80% of female offenders in this study, have reported abuse. In terms of sexual abuse, probably the most common type that's very damaging. 1 in 4 females, 1 in 4 females, and 1 in 7 to 10 males up to age 18. So it's really prevalent, really, really prevalent. All right. I don't have to tell you about the impact of trauma. It's not good. Anybody who's constantly in that fight or flight is going to have very short-term thinking and very desperate kind of behaviors. The level of need they have is very, very high. All right. So ACEs is pretty heavy. I don't know if you can read that too well, but just take a quick look at it and glance through it and see how many of these boxes you personally have. I won't ask you to share, but I'll give you an idea of kind of how it's measured.
Can you read it to us?
Yes. No problem at all. This one says, let's see if I can get it bigger for me. It says, did you feel that you didn't have enough to eat? This is before age 18 and below. So in your recollection of your history from 18 and below, did you feel like at one point of your life you did not have enough to eat, had to wear dirty clothes, or had no one to protect or take care of you? Did you lose a parent through divorce, abandonment, death, or other reasons? Did you live with anyone who was depressed, mentally ill, or attempted suicide? Did you live with anyone who had a problem with drinking or using drugs, including prescription drugs? Did your parents or adults in your home ever hit, punch, beat, or threaten to harm each other? Did you live with anyone who went to jail or prison? Did a parent or adult in your home ever swear at you, insult you, or put you down? That's going to probably be a lot. Did a parent or adult in your home ever hit, beat, kick, or physically hurt you in any way? Did you feel that no one in your family loved you or thought you were special? Did you experience unwanted sexual contact? Ever. So, usually 2 of those is enough to create some kind of feeling of trauma. It doesn't sound too heavy, but if you couple that again with the magical child mind amplifying the effect, it can feel pretty big. So, all right. So it's most of us. Now, the reason this is important is that, look, when we think about trauma, it's kind of like the way it's framed is that kid right there had some trauma. We should do something about it. But really, they're in a system. They're with you. And what about your trauma? What about your history? It's more complicated than just the kid. There's more going on than that. So your own trauma can really have a major effect. We'll talk about that in a sec. So what to do? In terms of trauma-informed practice, I just want to let you know, as I mentioned at the beginning, you really can't do anything. Unless you're doing those ACEs things to somebody, it's all good that you're adding in. You're just not going to feel like it and get credit for it, but you really are. Knowing about your trauma will probably be the easiest way not to hurt them, because these needs that you have, you won't be aware of them. And the way you interact with them, you won't be aware of what you're doing. If there is a harm and your trauma is involved, you will be completely unaware of it. You won't even know it's happening. So making sure checking yourself, that will be really, really critical. Herman talked about 3 stages of getting people through trauma: establishing safety, remembering the event, mourning it, and then reconnection, get back to the swing of things. So you just being around them through that is probably 90% of the issue. So you're good. Don't feel like you have to do more than just be there. You really don't. It really just starts with that, because you are a proxy parental figure that's creating that sense of safety for them. And again, it's not going to feel like you're doing much, but you really, really are. Other things is like because the trauma hits a lower consciousness, you're not aware as much. The things around you, messiness around, disorganization around you, that can have an impact. That kind of keep you on edge, all right? So just, keep the place nice. Try to make sure the rooms are good. Those things make a big difference. The language you use, huge, huge. Human beings, oh man. Language is how you get stuff in there. So what you're saying has a bigger impact. Choose your words carefully. If you're talking to them about an event, don't talk about it directly, like it says on here. You don't want to say, don't tell me about the car accident, but just tell me the last time you didn't feel safe. Let's talk about safety. When's the time you felt the most safe? So be careful about this. There are books written for lawyers who cross-examine based on very specific words, who manipulate that really, really well. They'll say shattered instead of broken, and that paints a picture. So for human beings, we get it in there. The world was spoken into existence. That's how powerful it is. The words are very, very powerful. All right. I want to talk about one thing that I didn't have on here, and that's about reading dysfunctional language. There's a part of psychology called it's behaviorism, and it's the side of psychology that trains animals, okay? So bears to ride bikes, killer whales to wave their hands. I brought it up here before, but try to think about that. When you go to SeaWorld or something, it just seems kind of cool. Oh, yeah, it's waving. But I just want you to, think about what's happening. You have an animal that will rip your head off. I mean, those orcas, great white sharks are afraid of them. A bear? You ever seen a bear go at something? And to get that to ride a bike, and to get the thing that's a powerful set of tools, okay? That same set of tools, I'm going to empower you a little bit, okay? What that entire system is based off of is something very, very simple. And they get these animals to do slight approximations of the behavior they want by giving them fish or, jelly beans or whatever it is. And they slowly learn that, if I do this, I get this, okay? Well, that's in you. That's really in there. And what's cool about it is it's based on a very simple system. Any human behavior, okay? And I mean any. When I learned about this, I thought, no way. Because people do all kinds of crazy things. How could it be anything? Any human behavior, any mammal behavior boils down to 4 things. People or animals, whatever, will engage in any behavior to get access to 4 things only. And it's the acronym SEAT, okay? So it's sensory, it's escape, attention, and tangible things. Now, sensory would be for kids typically on the spectrum who like to rock or self-injurious behavior. People like to cut. That's that. The tangible stuff is a paycheck. I mean, y'all go to work to get that tangible. Well, partly, I'm sure everybody's got jobs they like as well. But you ain't going there for free most of the time. So those 2 categories are there, but less common. Escape and intangible are going to be behind almost all the behavior you'll see. And I could tell you that in the foster side of things, as I do the work with STRTPs, adult attention going to be always there. Okay? So what I'd like you to really think about is that those crazy behaviors you're seeing, it's a dysfunctional language to ask for seat. And it doesn't matter what they're doing, they are after one of those and probably escape or attention, and mostly for attention, okay? So as you're asking yourself, what are you doing and how can I get that to go down? Once you can give them an alternate way to get the escape or get the attention, they'll stop doing that thing. And you could take that to the bank. Again, bears riding bikes. You can get a kid to do almost anything. And just so you know, there's a couple ways to do it. We work with schools on this all the time. Like I might have mentioned it, but like if I wanted you to take, or if someone wanted me to take off this jacket, they can give me rewards for doing it. They'll say, hey, Mitch, if you take off your jacket, we're going to give you some delicious burrito casserole. And I'll be like, let's go. That's fine. I'll do it right now. Or you could ask me nothing and turn up the heat, and I'll take off the jacket. Okay, either way. So really, it's those 2 techniques that will get, once you realize they're for attention, how can I increase the amount of attention, like turning up the heat, to get them to stop whatever they're doing? Or how can I organize their access to rewards to get them to do it? But they're after that. So, seat, You could try it with your spouse. It doesn't have to be a kid. It works anywhere, in any human. So just learn to realize the behaviors are a language, and if you do that, you'll get less frustrated about it. Because what it feels like to you and anybody is that you're failing somehow. I'm failing as a parent because they're doing that, right? All right, you want them to stop too, because then you're not a failing parent anymore. All right, so it has a double reward there. So, but just remember it's a language, and no matter how weird it is, try to just ask yourself, seat. How do I seat this thing? What are they really after? And if you give it to them, they really will do that. So like for kids who have trouble with math and they run out of the room, we can let them, that's an escape behavior. I hate math, I'm out of here. Okay, sounds smart actually, makes sense. How about if we let you escape the math by only making you do 5 problems and they could take a break or whatever and take 5 more. You're giving them the escape. They get to escape. They just don't have to run out of the classroom anymore. Or the same thing at the school. You don't have to throw anything to have me come and say hello to you or to interact with you. Don't underestimate a young person's need for your adult attention, and that doing something negative is easier, it's more predictable. It's way easier to get someone to come to you by doing something wrong than it is for doing something right. So it makes total sense why they're engaged in that. Because if you take away the good and bad and you just think, if they do that, how many people come? The bad stuff is it just outweighs it. All right, so just keep that in mind. All right, let's talk just real briefly about if they go to somebody like me, we do these things. All right, and all it is, psychology is the worst at this. Tries to sound all cool, and it's not. It's just what we do is really simple. But all of these therapies, really what they are, is a way to expose somebody to what they're scared about and not letting them go. And you teach them how to tolerate being scared. But that's all these are. It's just certain ways to do it. But that's essentially what it is. It's retraining. So trauma and anxiety have way more to do with memory than it has to do with some event. That's how this stuff works, okay? The treatment, if you're afraid of elevators, okay? I'm going to take you to elevators. It's kind of a bad job in that way. I'm just going to take you there. And what's going to happen is, because I know that fight or flight system can't stay on for very long, what happens is people will avoid elevators, right? They never expose themselves to the elevator. And so the memory of whatever happened to them in the elevator they're initially afraid of never gets broken. It gets reinforced. Like, elevator, fear, I run, or don't go to them if we're grown. Well, I know if I take someone to the elevator, they're going to hate it. But I know in 20 to 60 minutes, it won't matter. They'll be relaxed on the elevator. And so the treatment really is treating the memory. You're breaking elevator, fear, run. Elevator, fear, run. And you turn it to elevator, relaxed, no need to run. Elevator, relax, no need to run. That's all these are in a nutshell. And it really is a memory thing. So letting them talk about these things with people, good idea. It helps expose it to them. But these are just fancy ways of doing what I said. It's really all it is. That's that in a nutshell. So let's talk a little bit about what you can do. You didn't break them and you can't fix them. You could just be along the ride with them, and that's all they need from you. So take the pressure off yourself. I imagine you all have callings to do this in your life, because this is a tough task that you've taken on. But take the pressure off yourself. It's not up to you what happens. I would go that far even with your own children. Don't take credit for their good stuff or their bad stuff. You're just with them, and that's the best that you can do. It's other forces are at work. So just take the pressure off yourself. Just be with them. Make sure that anybody who's in a trauma situation, you want to kind of make sure they can reference safety wherever they go. If you go to the movie theater with them, say, hey, there's the exits out there. You can leave anytime you want. Make sure that nothing's blocking the door to their room. Just the sense that they can access safety will help that deeper part of them not trigger this fight or flight thing. So again, you're good. You don't have to do very much. Just be there, and then make sure they have access and reference to safety as much as possible. This one's big, as I mentioned before. You really got to make sure you check yourself. Human beings are tuning forks on a level that's really pretty interesting. If you aren't healthy in there, that's gonna pass on to them. Their little tuning fork is gonna start vibrating to whatever yours is. So make sure you're checking yourself. It's very, very important. That's what happens in therapy. So address your own drama if you got it in there. The last thing I'm going to say before these resources is I'm utterly impressed with the fact that you're taking this on and can't understate how big of a deal it is, not only for the lives of these kiddos, but in the lives of people that don't do this. You're carrying some serious weight for everybody else. And for whatever that's worth, I mean, I personally would like to thank you, but I think you also need to realize, and you're really doing something big. So not many people are going to tell you that. It's kind of like, okay, great, here's the kid, take them, goodbye, next. But you really are in the trenches, fighting a very incredible fight. And now, this is a church, so I feel safe saying here, you know, that other side doesn't tend to attack things that it's not afraid of. And one of the things I like to really reiterate with these kiddos and the guys in jail is that, look, if you didn't have something good to offer, the enemy is not coming after you. All right? The people that have the easy little life, they're pretty much lukewarm and they're not a threat to anything. Okay? So that's a silver lining in it as well, is that, man, it's a privileged position in a way to be attacked by that other side, showing that you have something good in you. And there's really no way around it. It's true. So thanks for being in there with that, because they need those shields and those weapons against attacks like that. All right, here's some resources you can go. There's 1,000 things online. Check it out. But I hope you got to get a sense of the depth of this, of why trauma kind of hits us very, very low level, unconscious level, that it's really the fight or flight system, that you can learn to read the seat behavior to deal with it. Make sure you're okay. Don't take responsibility for being the fixer. And really, that's the best you could do. It's a broken situation, and, you know, bring some Band-Aids, so we'll work with it. But just because it's unbroken doesn't mean it's wrong, that there's something wrong with it. I think the unbrokenness is okay. A long, long time ago, I'll stop with this, okay? I promise you. I talk forever, but like the Greeks, okay? They tried to chase perfection. They believed perfection was possible. This is why the Greek statues, I recently was over there and saw some of this stuff, and I now realize, whoa. The perfection they were chasing, they thought was possible to get. There was something holy in the symmetry and the perfection, and they tried to get it. And they found something, Pythagoras actually found it, and they weren't allowed to talk about it for like 10 years, okay? He found irrational numbers. These are things that you can't evenly divide. And in their pursuit of perfection, every little click of the marble for the statue, they realized there isn't any. And so brokenness is a part of what we're in. It's a natural thing. It's in there. So you're in a natural environment. There is no perfect little family. The brokenness is okay. So, all right, I'm going to stop there. You guys have resources here, and I'm happy to open it up to questions. Don't feel pressure on that. If you don't have any, you're not going to hurt my feelings. I'm good, okay? But if you do, I'm happy to answer them.
I appreciate you saying that it's really important just to be there, because it can be overwhelming when you don't really understand everything. You have your own context, and it's not like what you're dealing with, so you feel sometimes like you just don't have the skill set, and you want to do it right. But how can
Yeah, I think that the best kind of memories that you can put in them are the kind that predict you're going to be there again tomorrow. I think even if you have good times and they go away, that's worse. It would be better to have no times and still be there. So I think you want to do things that would give the sense that this happiness, these new memories you're going to form are going to be there again tomorrow and in the future. And then things that project safety, even the way you drive, even like, hey, I have some money in the bank, like things that let them reference stability, the law, the fact that, hey, no matter what, till you're 18 or beyond sometimes now, all this is going to be there for you. Anything that references safety and it will be in the future, that's the best thing you can ever give them, because that's what they're wondering about. That's really it. So, while you're forming, do good things, have great memories for sure. But the fact that they're going to be there in the future is the real key to it. I think in good families or intact families, however you want to put it, that's implied, right? You see the movies where the grandma and grandpa are on this rocking chair. It's that, they're there in the future. That's the message you'll get from intact families a lot of times. And they're just looking for that. They just want to know that they're going to get that too. So create good memories, of course, but it's the future sense that's really important. Yeah.
Question about the seats, the C8.
Yes.
If like you have a kid that's if they're flipping their lid and they're not working on the front of the brain, but other parts, do those things you have to try to get them back into a better state of thinking before you implement, like, hey, let's try, or would it work immediately?
Will not work immediately. They are in a different land. There's no words coming in. What you want to do, and we again, schools, we do this, we see this the most, but what you want to do is don't engage with them in that spot right there. You don't want to feed that with any attention at all. They don't want to ever reference that state and you doing extra stuff with them, ever. Turn around, turn your body. Best thing to do is just monitor for safety. If they're not running out the door or got a knife or something, don't intervene. Turn around, no eye contact, just monitor the safety, walk away. They'll calm down. They will calm down, because if it's for attention and nobody's around, why do it? You can see a lot of these videos. I've watched little 2-year-old kids, going crazy, and the parent leaves. They stop and they look around the corner to see if they're there. So, like, if that doesn't work, then it's not for attention. They're trying to escape something else. That's the beauty of seat. It's that even if you're wrong, it just means it's a different one. But definitely if it's attention-based, do not feed it with any attention at all. Just make sure safety's there. And the second if they're going crazy, you're like this. And the second you hear them not going crazy and none of that, you turn around and say, oh, how's it going? Going good? Great, nice to see you, nice hair, wonderful. And then the brain does that memory thing. It starts to link those things. And it's not like it's going to turn it off forever, but there's no need to do it. They're getting what they're actually after. So yeah, good question. Practice the seat. The seat, once you master that, there is no behavior you can't address. And then you're working to it in a different way. Like, if you get seat good enough, you'll never need it in the moment. So, for example, when I do this stuff with schools or with the STRTP homes themselves, and we actually try, we know it's going to be seat, right? Like, so in a school, it's so funny. The beginning of the year, everybody's all great, rared up to go, and then October hits, they want to die because they have 8 seats. That one kid. But so I tell them in the beginning, like, listen, we know you're going to deal with seat. So if we could program seat in your classroom at a couple different levels, if you have 2 seats, we usually do 8 of them. 3, and 2 is usually what we go with. Sensory is relatively rare. It's usually for kids on the spectrum who have a specialized plan anyway. But if we plan for seat, then when it comes up, you have things ready to go. I would recommend that in your own homes. What do you have there for adult attention? What is the extra time? Man, they can sit down and do dishes with you. They could ride with you to the post office. It doesn't have to be Disneyland. It's just you and them in space right next to each other. That's all it is. And they just need a little bit more of it. So I would ask, where's seat in the church? Where's seat in wherever they're going to be? Where's seat? And then once you see it, you just direct them towards that. That's one of those safety features. Their little brain is looking for seat anyway. They're scanning for it because it's safety. So If they know, like, okay, there's the escape, there's the exit sign, it means I can escape. Seat is kind of checked off the list. Oh, here's the pastor I could speak with. These are my parents. I have access to them. There's the attention part. So you see, the brain's always looking for it. And it's just a matter of making it a little bit more available, a little bit more explicit with kids like this, and they will not need to do such desperate things to get it. And it's the desperate things that we're all like wondering, what the heck do we do about? Well, it's just, well, why are they doing it? That's what to do about it. Once you know why, what becomes pretty obvious. And if you practice that, if you have them for, 10 years, 20, 12 years, it's a long time to learn them and how to deliver that. So, yep. Yes, sir.
I have the same question, different scenario. I have a daughter that goes a bit, kind of a random thing, and I love good noise behavior. If she's kicking the door, waking everybody up, screaming, knocking chairs over, throwing things. And what I end up doing is picking her up, taking her outside, and the cars or whatever, and just kind of calm her down, and then I can usually get to bed.
So the question then is, this is either attention or escape. It's guaranteed. So I'll ask you, in your opinion, if you had to take a guess at it, is it the I get to not go to bed, I'm escaping not being able to sleep, or is it, man, Dad gives me this nice bear hug, we go look at the stars, or a combination? If you had to make a money bet, where would you put it?
I think it's more of a, I don't know, but
Okay. So, of course she doesn't. I get it. Okay. So what I would do in a situation like that, so the hugs, all that stuff, the stars, that's not really what she's after. She doesn't want to go to sleep. Well, let me ask you all this. When do you really want to go to sleep? And I don't mean that. I mean that for real. Like there's a state your body will be in when you, okay. So what I would do in that situation is increase a whole bunch of stuff before she goes. Exercise. We're going to go on a run together, daughter. You're going to want to increase her body's tiredness, and she will not fight it. I mean, it's not the only thing you can do, but if she's escaping the I don't want to go to bed part, that's the way you can do it. I would add contingencies to that too. Like, look, okay, I'm going to give you 5 minutes to kick stuff. We're not going to come in. You want to kick stuff? Cool. Put something on her door, all right. And say that if you can kick for 5 minutes, and for every minute after that you continue to kick, you're going to lose X, Y, or Z. Or for every minute after that you don't kick, you're going to gain whatever she's interested in. I would put those two things together. One is non-contingent, like turning on the heat, right? Get her tired. And the other one is she gets to earn stuff for not doing those things. And I think that'll be your best bet. Then it's just a matter of which things she likes to earn. And she's still not going to want to go to sleep. But if she's getting a reward, she'll still not want to go to sleep, but just not kick and go crazy. So you see how powerful the why is? Doesn't the what seem so obvious after you know the why? Because it sounds like a tough situation, and it is. And it's not like it's going to be perfect, but something along these lines will work. So once you look at the why, and there's only 4, and 2 are the ones you're really going to see, you can tackle almost any behavior. Yeah.
I know who, it's hard to get her going in the morning, and it takes medication. And before that medication's in her system, it's like, I have to, I mean, I can't even brush my teeth by myself without addressing something that's happening. If my eyes aren't on her, she's not doing what she needs to do.
How explicit is what she needs to do? Is it like she got a little schedule that says at 8, and does she follow each thing? What's okay?
I mean, it's brush teeth, get dressed, eat breakfast. Sometimes comb hair, it doesn't even matter. I don't even care about hair anymore.
Where at?
You don't care.
Gotcha.
It's just the basics.
Okay, so I would ask the same initial question that I would ask anybody. In terms of seat and probably escape and intangible, which one do you think it is? Don't know. So, okay, let's play some scenarios. What would she be escaping by this? In other words, what happens after all that is she probably goes to school, my guess, yeah? How does she like school? She likes school, okay. She has friends there and all that stuff. Okay, so she, okay, okay. That's always that diagnosis always is a funny one to me. It's one of those ones that's like we don't really know why, but we're gonna slap a name on it. that's ODD to me. Right. Because you're seeing the defiance. That makes sense. Okay. So it sounds like the issue really is more around the directives and not the tasks. So this is a won't do kid, not a can't do kid. She's able to brush her teeth. She's able to eat breakfast, right? Okay. So really the issue to her is she doesn't like to be told it. Okay. Then what you would want to do. So she's escaping likely the feeling of that's probably too psyche, but it's the feeling of the not feeling empowered by having to be told what to do. It's a lower status, whatever have you. So you want to so make it a choice for her. She got 3 things she needs to do. You get to decide which one you get to do in order. And you got 1 minute to decide because then I decide after that. Right? Give her a choice. You can do these in any order. You want to eat first and then brush your teeth? Well, cool. You want to brush your teeth and eat? It's not that great, but it's not going to be the end of the world. Then you can kind of work those orders later as you want. But give her some choice in it, some timelines of it, and then if she chooses well, she gets rewarded, and let her decide what that is. Come up with a list with her. Here's 10 things I want to do. You get to choose from this list. You do this within this time frame, put on a timer too. Click, 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 click. They're really good about that. That's one of those safety features. They know rewards are coming when this is 0. It's a predictive thing. So give her, hey, you get to decide. Just reward, you're reinforcing her not fighting you. And you're increasing the likelihood that she won't fight you by her choosing. You're not even in there. She gets to choose without you saying anything. It's the thing telling her. So, I would try some techniques like that. But the reward and punishment stuff, you'd be surprised. If you said to her, if you don't get these things done by this time, that phone you got, you're coming right home from school, you can do some chores. Give it a couple of those, she will look at it different. On the choices or
No, on the reward or punishment. Am I having a good morning? Like yelling. Am I having a good morning? Like I'm gonna get ready.
tell her. I mean, yeah.
Well, the answer is usually no.
Right.
That's the part that is like.
Yeah, this would be an attention seeker for sure. It's something in there because she's not escaping anything that unpleasant, and she likes going to what's next. So I would try to remove that attentional part for sure, and just reference the timer. Just point. You don't have to tell her. Just point to it, and point to what she needs to do. Walk away. Try that. Try manipulating the rewards a little bit more. You might have to turn the rewards up. They might have to be more frequent. But if you could take yourself out of the having to ask, that's probably the easiest way. They're the most likely to work way. Another way to, I'm sorry about that. Did you have siblings or did she have siblings? You can have her teach the skill, right? Can you teach younger daughter, son, how to do it? With the same list, like, can you be the teacher of this? She's now the director. She's now the commander in it. That's another thing you can try. But there's some combo in there, I promise you. Look, she's getting fed in a way that's making that stay. For sure. So it's just a matter of figuring out what it is. And yeah, try a couple of these and see if it moves. If it moves, you're on the right track. Increase that a little bit. If it doesn't move, it's something else. But it can only be one of 4 things. I guarantee you could take that to the bank. Again, bears on bikes. It works. for sure. Just got to figure it out.
Hopefully this is an easy one. My 17-year-old son is extremely logical. I think he might be on the spectrum. None of his teachers care, but one teacher cared that he doesn't like to take his baseball cap off in class. He wants to take them off. My son doesn't. He's been diagnosed with ODD. He's got whatever you want to call it. He does have an oppositional thing.
That's going to be a sensory. That'll be the S. That'll be an S.
He doesn't. It's like no one else involves you. Nothing you do. You're the history teacher. Who cares about my hat? He takes it off reluctantly, and it's turning up the heat in class because there's other stuff like the teacher will put his hand out to take the assignment and he'll drop it in front of him. And it's rude. It's disrespectful. I'm not happy with the triangle going on right now. And I want my son to get his act together because he knows what he's doing. He just says, I don't like, my hat, why do I have to take it off? And I said, you know what? I want you to respect the teacher. I'm going at him logically too, but listening to you talk tonight makes me think, am I just hitting at the wrong spot instead of saying,
Okay.
you like jelly beans? Oh, jelly beans.
Okay. So it doesn't look like he probably likes to wear the hat again for sensory reasons. Because he's probably not full blown on the spectrum, he can tolerate taking it off. There are kids who they're going to keep that hat, and I'm like, you ain't taking that hat is going to stay on. They'll get suspended. They won't care. Yeah, they're not. They want the hat. I think that the fact that he's taking it off in other classes means. Oh, he's at all.
Nobody makes him take it.
Oh, okay.
One teacher.
Okay. I mean, he's able to do it in one, so that's a good sign. So you can address this a couple ways. If it truly is like a sensory thing for him, the school will probably work with you on keeping the hat on. But the better way is, if it's a sensory thing, you can do that a different way. Can he wear a headband? Can he put a rubber band on his wrist to keep that pressure? So if it's a sensory thing, just instead of doing it with a hat, do it with something else if you can. And again, the school's usually pretty good about that. If it's like really he gets emotionally dysregulated and can't handle it, that's probably worth it to school to let him keep it on under some conditions. Oh, that's a good sign. That's too much power for a kid. That's not good for a kid to learn that he can do that. Yeah.
So I see the power play going on. I know he can take a hat off. He does like to wear it. He puts a blanket clip on the bill. Kind of odd part of his profile. But he can take it.
Go ahead.
He can take it off.
Okay.
So I want him to I would love for him to come to a place where you can just walk into the class and take the hat off.
He can get there. He can get there.
Yeah, so how do I move him in a better direction?
Okay, definitely I would start with the sensory piece. Just give him another option than the hat. I would let him know that there are places in the world that the rules are going to overtake your comfort, and have him start to understand that. I mean, he is able to do it, all right? And then I would just see about the school how flexible they would be with letting him have the hat sometimes. So like if the school's cool, let him earn his way of putting the hat. Oh, if you hand your paper in without dropping on the floor and acting like that, you act in a respectful way, you can have your hat for 15 minutes at the end of any class. So just link the behaviors you want to see him do. He doesn't see the importance of them necessarily, so it's still just an act. But him acting in that way is more healthy for him. So, okay, if the school's cool, we'll see if you can get your hat for some amount of time in the class if you do these things consistently. Yeah, no, I agree with you. You just keep raising the bar of what that takes, right? So then eventually it's that, hey, the expectation is you're not going to have the hat at all, and the fact that you didn't fight the school on it, we'll have some kind of rewards between you and him. But I would first see if the school's willing to work with you a little bit on earning the hat time. Because it'll be easier to thin it out than it will be just to stop it. Like, you can do that, but you're going to have to be prepared to really shut his world down. And if he's a spectrum-like kid, I mean, you can, but you're going to have to be prepared for that fight. So I think there's a way to thin him out of it. But he can't feel like an equal to school personnel in any way. That's unhealthy. Unhealthy.
I mean, that's where he's at right now. He already keeps it on 6 out of 7 classes. It's only the one class. So he's already getting a lot of leeway here. And even today and yesterday, he did take it off. But his little thing is, you have to ask me. You have to tell me. I'm going to act like
Okay.
every single day with brush and crack.
if this was my kid, I would say, look, I know you like the hat, but if you put it on in school, I'm going to burn your hat. You're not going to see this hat again. So, like, I'd like you to keep this hat, but this is the rule. I mean, because he's shown to be able to do it. So just look, you can choose to have the hat be alive or not by this. In the back one time, go ahead.
So is that where, I'm hearing some kind of trying to connect some dots, is that where, like, when you're saying suffering and resiliency is coming into, that we're not just bending to their will, we're trying to get them to, as much as we possibly can,
Yes,
be
because
comfortable, because that's okay for you.
yes, and more deep to that is that you're giving them a true sense of feeling loved, and that's where they're going to feel the most safety. If you have a kid with you and they run out to the street and the parents are like, the kid will feel less loved by you, okay? Because you aren't safe and your love value is lower. Now that's nice about God because he can fill that in. But if a kid runs out in the middle of the street and you grab him by the neck and show them that, look, man, that is not going to happen because I love you, they will have a greater sense of love. Even though the experience might be a little uncomfortable, they will feel more loved. So it's not just tolerating for resilience sake. That's in there as well. But it's also so they feel like you care about them on a deep level. Love is a funny word. It don't just feel good. Look at Christ. It's not just a good feeling thing all the time. It's something way deeper. So, our little parental love is a fractal of that. And so it is more than just tolerating. It's to say, hey, no, I love you enough to say no. And remember, we were a species that raised children in communities. Okay, so like most kids had multiple parent figures. There was one that they were biologically attached to, but they're used to other adults jump in. I think in churches it's easier because you kind of have there's the same framework and you can trust one another a little more. Out in the world, you don't know who's doing what or why, but that sense of community child rearing, or like, hey, you don't disrespect that teacher because that's basically me. We're naturally made for that. So there's something that will reinforce your sense of love with them. Let's go here. Yeah.
Like in that situation where she wants him to take it off without being asked, so then is the reward that you would give them if you take it off without having to be asked, then the reward comes.
Yes, and the more frequently the better. You can buy them another hat of that type. The way that part of your brain works is that you want the rewards to be very quickly given right after what you want to see them do. When people are like, oh, if you do this till 4 months from now, we're going to go to Disneyland, it has no effect. It has to be pretty much immediate. And for him, the hat is a high-value thing. I'm sure there's other high-value things. But kids want to hear no. They're asking for you to say no, too, because the real question is, do you love and care about me? That's really what they're asking, okay, through what they're doing. And so answer them fully.
Is him coming home and getting a reward soon enough, or like she works out with the teacher that if he walks in and takes off with the teacher, there's some sort of reward?
The sooner the better. The best case would be immediately. Yeah, hey, you got authority. Yeah, there you go. Right. That's it. Or home at the next possible one. But generally, the quicker the better, because it's a memory thing. Because the brain it has to do with memory. It's association. I did this thing and some reward came, and that'll sink in. Yes.
I basically asked my mom for an entire thing, and you said something about like 4 months later. From the child's perspective, how do you think I should get my mom to like lower that 4 months to a little bit less? Hold on. Keeping our room clean for 4 months for a fish and dog or
I think that's a good question. I'd say, Mom, lower the threshold a little bit. It's like a person wanting to get a raise. In 10 years, you're going to get an extra $1. Probably ain't going to fly. But yeah, you might want to lower it a little bit. But on the other hand, given the age and stage of the person, you in this case, you also don't want to be rewarding them all the time for things they should be doing. The part that psych. Okay, that's fine. That's fine. Yeah, just the sooner the better. Where the psychology stuff gets a little bit lost is that they keep it into reward too much. Like the real technique is you're pushing someone to natural rewards. Okay? So for example, if I have a good conversation with somebody, no one has to give me a bag of M&Ms to do it again. Okay? Like it's rewarding. Okay? So I try to look at it like a river. Like there's this river of natural developmental things that are going on. You can read the psychs. There's all kinds of categories: moral, cognitive, physical. There's all kinds of it's this flow that things go with. If you can get these little reinforcement systems, kind of like off the highway exit back onto the freeway, that's the ultimate goal. You want to let the natural world reinforce those behaviors. Telling someone F you is not going to lead you to a lot of social relationships, okay? But once you've got them talking right, they're going to naturally be invited to talk more. So it's not just the rewards, it's the rewards that push them to natural occurring behaviors. That's the best way to do it. And that's, again, with the foster side, you're giving them kind of artificial love and attention to hopefully let them get it in the real world. That's going to come later in their own kind of marital relationships or, more adult relationships. They're going to get those things. And let's not forget that God could fill in any level of relationship at any time. So you have that, You don't got to wait to the marital part. I mean, God can do it. So anyway, I don't have to tell you that. It's obvious. Is she artistic?
Artistic?
Yeah. Like, does she like to draw and music?
She likes to color.
Okay.
But I guess my question is that a trauma thing? Is it she's just having a bad memory?
The easiest way for me to answer this question is kind of like in an example of things, okay? So what you're talking about is kind of a lack of attention and a lack of awareness or in the momentness, I guess, yeah?
If I tell her something, she will actually forget.
Yeah.
It's like I didn't say anything at all.
Okay. So in the world of clinical psych, when you're dealing with inattention, so when someone comes to a clinical psychologist, it's usually pretty bad. Like they're not just sad, they're really depressed. They're not just a little nervous, they're super anxious. Okay, they're coming to us jacked up, so to speak. So with attention, what to do about that? First of all, I probably wouldn't worry about it. It just means that her attention she's probably, that's why I asked if she was artistic. She's probably inside of her head a little bit as a position. Okay, there are some people that are very outside of their head, very gregarious. They're watching everybody. These personalities are lively because they're outside. They're really managing what's out here. And there's people that are inside. And so let me tell you the pathological versions of those that I will come across. There are the behavior of inattention, like, hey, they're not tracking my voice, or they're not tracking a thing I'm asking them to do, or whatever it is. Could be for a couple reasons. So in the psychotic ones, what you'll find is that they can pay attention, but the outside world's so scary or disorganized or weird, which is the opposite of the truth. It's way more organized in here than in their mind. But in their mind, it's super organized in their own weird way. Their inattentiveness with what's going on from the outside world is not a lack of attention. They're just really inside, and they're just kind of don't want to look out there. So it looks like they're not paying attention, but they're paying attention from a bunker, okay? For kids who are on the spectrum, like autism-wise, they are inside like that, but for a different reason. They're not afraid of the outside world. They like certain things only. They like chicken nuggets that are dinosaurs, period. They'll get fixated on anything, washing machines. I mean, they'll know everything about a vacuum cleaner you can ever imagine. So their lack of attention is more because they like only certain things, but they're able to pay attention. And then you have people that are kind of like in the ADHD where they're healthy in and outside perspectives, but their brain can't do it. They can't pay attention because of more neurological reasons. My guess is, you said your daughter? Daughter is probably more on the artistic personality type, more feeling the flow of the world going through. She might get lost in a feeling and lose track of what's happening out here a little bit. So it's probably more of a temperamental thing than it is a pathological one.
So maybe I could just be more like the average.
I would say that like she's going to pay attention to more emotionally nested things. It's like, look, I could show you right now. If I were to tell you right now, like I'm going to give you a math equation, I want you to imagine it, okay? There's tests like this for psych, but I'm just going to give you numbers. Let me make it more like the psych test, okay? So 5, 7, 9, 8, 3. Who can tell me that back? Anybody? Okay. Not bad. You guys are good. That's excellent. Okay. Now, I'm going to ask you to remember the words Jack, 5, exit. Okay? All right. Who could tell me the 5 numbers?
5, 7, 8, 9, 3.
Impressive. You guys are, this is blowing me away. Okay. So while you can remember those things, that's great. If I ask you to remember this picture, the red horse galloped down the green hill across the grassy meadow with flowers and butterflies flapping. You got that picture in your mind. And I could ask you tomorrow about that picture. I could ask you that picture a year from now. Hey, man, you remember when I was doing that boring talk and I asked you to remember that? So you'd be like, yeah. Okay, but if I ask you to remember the 5 numbers, you're going to be like, what? Okay, you see, the reason that is it's a richer form of experience. And so your daughter experiences the world more like that. And it's less the word, it's not just the words and the things like the math would be. It's the other senses that are involved in the picture. And so she's just going to experience her reality a little bit more multisensory. So she might be paying less attention to the words you're saying, but experiencing something richer. Nothing wrong with her. Nothing wrong with her. She's just wired a little bit more that way. Human beings are like a mixing board. They all have the same knobs. They all have the same volume. It's just a matter of what order they're in. Some of them are off over here. Some of them need a little more bass. And my job is like a DJ, more or less. I just a little there, and they got the same knobs. So her knobs are just turned that way.
All right. All right. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for being here tonight. If you need certificates, they are in the back. Feel free to grab some more fruit cups or some brownies on your way out. And then our next one is going to be December something. It's on the. We have cards back there.
First Thursday of December.
Yes, first Thursday of December. Because we run into issues with Thanksgiving and everything. So that one will actually be a respite. That's a drop-off night. So you guys can sit in silence in your car if you would like to, or you can go Christmas shopping or do whatever you need. December 7th, that's what it is. So that is our next one. And then we will be reconvening for regular training in January. So thank you guys very much. Your kids are waiting for you. Certificates, let me go find them.